And when we came in this office 8 years ago, we created something called the Public Integrity and Fraud Unit. And on top of that, we created the West Virginia checkbook system. And so what our goal was is to not only be able to find fraud through our typical audits, which we do, but to also empower every single taxpayer to be able to see the transactions that their governments are making and be able to sort of serve as 1.8 million sort of field auditors for us. And we think that's really important. And so we get reports of fraud, not just from our own investigators, but also frequently from the public, just in a regular fraud tip. But we also get them from other officials, right? There's whistleblowers. And I would say the majority of the cases that we get come from whistleblowers within offices, right? People who are, an assistant to a treasurer or somebody who has access to the records, sees what's going on, and wants to make sure that their government is being protected because they want to do it the right way. The process is different for almost all of them. But the long and the short of it is that we triage every single one of the fraud complaints that we get, and we get lots, hundreds. And that's sort of, I think, by virtue of the fact that we have opened up the books of so many of our governments in West Virginia that people feel empowered to call us and say, you know what, why don't you look into this? This doesn't look right to me. I don't want my tax dollars being spent this way. And more often than not, there's nothing to it. And the government does things that sometimes don't look right, but is right. But then when we start digging in, and our forensic accountants and our investigators are very, very well trained to be able to spot what is real fraud pretty quickly. And when we elevate something beyond a complaint and into an investigatory sort of stance, then the real work sort of starts. And we will always bring in our state police partners, our prosecutorial partners, deputy sheriffs, to make sure that we're building the team of people that can prosecute these cases the right way, and that we have all of the information that we need to have airtight cases when we bring something to a grand jury. Surely every single government in West Virginia is supposed to be audited every year, but many times we will provide a contract to a local government and they won't sign it. And in the instance here in Fort Gay that we're talking about, it had been a really long time since they'd ever accepted one of our audits. And we have proposed legislation that gives us a little bit more of a stick in this scenario, because right now, if somebody says I don't want to be audited, there's really nothing the auditor's office can do.
And when it comes to that legislation, would that have been required them to respond, or how would that bill?
It would have given us several different ways that we could have said you're either going to get audited or these things are going to happen to you. And it is our belief that these ramifications of not being audited will be significant enough to enable us to get people to be audited. And I'm only going to be here for 6 more weeks. And Auditor Hunt is going to come in here and do a great job. He's really got a great team of people around him, and we're really hopeful the legislature will see the work that we've done over the last 8 years and work to give him some of the advantages that maybe we didn't have, and learn from some of the processes that we've been trying to remedy for the last 8 years, because almost everyone does the right thing. I mean, I think if anything needs to come out of this, 99% of our government officials in West Virginia are fantastic, and they do their absolute very best to do with the taxpayers' money what should be done. We're really dealing with a small portion of the population, and fraud happens everywhere. People steal from the grocery store, and they steal from the bank, and they steal from any place where there's money or something to be stolen, people will steal. And so the biggest mission of this office and our mantra is there's no small fraud, only frauds we find quickly. And so giving great systems and great tools for all of our local governments to find fraud quickly is really the way that this is going to go. And we think that legislation really advances that idea a pretty long way.